We're going to go ahead and get started now. Hi everyone, my name is Rachel Portell. I am the founder of Tailored Wines, which is a company that works here out of the 1871 space. And before I introduce our fantastic speakers, I want to quickly tell you a little bit about 1871. We are celebrating 1871's 5th birthday this week, which is very exciting. When 1871 started 5 years ago, it was only 50,000 square feet and 50 companies. Today we're at 140,000 square feet and 500 companies. So, yeah, absolutely. 1871 is a nonprofit, so everything they do for companies here is just completely out of the kindness of their heart. They don't take any equity from the companies. They provide mentorship. There's thousands of events here each year. It's really a fantastic space. There's VC firms and startups and universities and a great place to work. I recently graduated from Wisdom, which is a Women in STEM Business Accelerator here. It's a 12-week program that helps 12 to 15 companies in each of their cohorts. So if you're a woman in business and have a technology component to your business, I highly recommend checking it out. Enough rambling on, you're not here to hear me speak. So now I have the pleasure of introducing Samantha Fields, who was appointed by Mayor Emanuel as the Commissioner of the City of Chicago Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection just this past January. Since her appointment, she's been instrumental in streamlining business licenses and eliminating barriers, and continues to engage with community groups and businesses in an effort to build solution and nurture entrepreneurships and weed out the bad actors. And tonight's Small Business Expo is just one example of the way the city is providing guidance to the people who are the economic backbones of our economy, which is small businesses. So please welcome Samantha Fields.
Thank you for the introduction, Rachel. We are very fortunate at the ACP and the City of Chicago to have such a great partnership with 1871, and look forward to having more events here to host with you guys. So my name is Samantha Fields, and I am the new commissioner for the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection. So Rachel had hinted that I was instrumental in doing a few things, but I really just take the credit of my awesome team. They do a lot of work. So if I can have everybody from Team BACP, please wave your hands. They put on this great event, and they do several others. We have 4 more in the community. They are the dream team, and they are the ones that answer your calls when you have questions about business licensing or when you want to complain about a business. These hard-working folks are the ones who will sit on the phone and walk through everything detail by detail so that you are properly served. So I want to give them another round of applause, because they make me look good, and I take credit for all their hard work. So we oversee the day-to-day operations. I oversee the day-to-day operations of the department to make sure that there is a fair and lively marketplace for both businesses and consumers within the city of Chicago. The department is responsible for licensing businesses, public vehicles, enforcing the municipal code, providing business education workshops, as well as other resources that help entrepreneurs and small businesses and small business owners. Additionally, we protect consumers from fraud by raising awareness and holding businesses accountable for their actions. Our department conducts annual investigations on things like tax preparers, immigration service providers, sidewalk cafes, and valet companies. Nothing makes me happier than being here at our Small Business Expo and seeing the entrepreneurs and business owners who will shape the economic future of the city. That's why we are committed to streamlining the business licensing process and eliminating barriers to doing business in Chicago. Your energy, your vision, and your dreams are the intangible resources that make the city rich and give it its vigor. We know you are on your way to success, but for most of our entrepreneurs, the road is a bumpy one, littered with sleepless nights, moments of confusion and terror and exhaustion, and ultimately deep satisfaction. We are here to help smooth the pavement, fill the potholes, and speed up your journey to success. We'll always be your one-stop shopping for business support and resources. Now, it is with great pleasure that I introduce you to a Chicago success story. Restaurateur and master sommelier Alpana Singh Alpana grew up in California wine country where her family owned an ethnic grocery store. She discovered her love of wine while waiting tables in college. That love would lead her on her life's journey, and at age 23, she became the sommelier for Everest Restaurant here in Chicago. I don't know what you guys were doing at 23, but I wasn't doing that. 3 years later, Alpana passed the final level of the Master Sommelier exam, and that puts her in a rarefied company indeed. Alpana continued to be an overachiever. For 10 years, she hosted Check Please. Do you guys remember the episode with our President Barack Obama? She appeared on the Today Show and Iron Chef and opened 3 successful restaurants, the Boarding House, 7 Lions in Chicago, and Terra and Vine in Evanston. It is with great pleasure that I give you Alpana. Woo!
Thank you, Commissioner Fields. Well, it's a pleasure to be here today and have the chance to share my story and journey to becoming an entrepreneur. Today, I am the owner, as Commissioner Fields said, of 3 restaurants in the Chicagoland area. I have the great fortune of working for myself and being in charge of my day and my destiny. But my goal here is to speak very honestly and candidly about what it took to get to this point. I'm a firm believer that we do each other a disservice when we don't share the truth and the reality about how hard it really is to go into business for yourself. You know, I don't want you, as you embark on this journey, to look back and think, but she made it sound so easy. You know, maybe there's something wrong with me, maybe I'm doing it all wrong. So my exact intention here today is to arm you with the truth, but first, a little history. Many of you probably remember me from Check Please, but my story began very, very far away from the glitz and glam of television. Even if it was PBS, it's still very glamorous. I never imagined I would start my own business. I grew up in Monterey, California. My parents are from the Fiji Islands in the South Pacific, and they moved to the States in 1975 in search of a better life for themselves and for the children that they would one day have. My brother and I came along shortly afterwards, and we grew up in a fairly typical immigrant household, balancing the traditions of our Indian culture and an heritage with those that would be considered American ideals. When I was growing up, very few people who looked like me were on television, unless you counted Apu from The Simpsons, but hey, at least he owned his own business, right? So when I was in 6th grade, my parents decided to buy an Indian grocery store, you know, to get in business for themselves. I was given the task of working in the store after school and over the summers for the next 6 years. This is where I learned firsthand that owning a business is extremely difficult, especially on family life. Both my parents worked and we all pitched in. My mom, you know, she cleaned houses. My dad moonlighted as a banquet server. You know, we didn't go on vacations. We rarely had family dinner time, you know, but we did what we could do to keep things going because that's what it takes when you have your own business. I secretly said to myself that I would never own my own business. I didn't want to live that kind of a life that was always under financial and emotional stress. Well, the recession hit. My parents eventually sold the business, and I moved on to an after-school job working as a waitress at my local Baker's Square. I loved that job. I was 15 years old, and I took to restaurant work like a fish to water. I enjoyed interacting with customers, my coworkers. I felt for the first time in my life that I belonged on a team. My parents felt that my after-school endeavors were great. You know, I would learn about responsibility, the value of earning money, and work ethic. But I was always reminded that I had to set my career goals higher, which for an Indian girl was becoming a doctor or at least marrying one. So I graduated high school, was 17th in my graduating class, but when it did come time for college, unfortunately there was no money. My parents were, you know, burdened with tax debt, the financial loss of it all. My dream was to go to UC Berkeley. I wanted to study political science, but I decided to stay home and go to community college where I figured out a way to pay for school. I was 18, and I decided that plan was to join the Air Force. I was for a brief period Airman Singh, and I was going to learn how to fly a plane. Just to let you guys know, I'm 40 and I still don't have a driver's license. So the night before I was getting ready to leave for boot camp, I had my first brush with my sense of intuition. This is such a strange story. It's still a mystery to me. But as I was being interviewed by the Air Force doctor, he looked at me kind of strange. He kind of cocked his head to the side, and he was a very large, imposing man. He's kind of like, you can just picture him smoking a cigarette, just like interviewing me. And he asked me if I wanted, with 100% of conviction, if I wanted to really be in the Air Force. And something came over me at that moment, and I said, no, I don't. And then he said to me to go out there, that something better was waiting for me, and it was my job to find out what that was. Well, I came home and I realized that I needed to up my financial game, so I applied for a waitressing position at a very posh restaurant in Monterey that just opened. I re-enrolled in community college. I applied for the job, but I was turned away because I didn't know anything about wine. I was 18. It's made from grapes. Like, what else do you need to know? I applied for but I decided I didn't want to take no for an answer. And that's when I realized you have to have gumption in life. If somebody says no and you want it, you still go for it. You don't take no for an answer. So I went and bought a couple of wine books. I memorized them. I came back. I said, please give me a chance. So they decided to take a chance on me. And I promised to keep up my wine studies. And interestingly enough, just yesterday, I had a 19-year-old who came and interviewed for a job with me. And I always remind myself that I used to be in her position. Guess what? I'm giving her a chance. Because you don't know what's going to happen. You can change somebody's life like that. So here I was at the age of 18, surrounded by sophisticated older adults who knew so much more than I did. But that's where you just fake it till you make it. I applied myself earnestly and studied whatever I could about wine, and then something magical happened. I discovered that I really enjoyed it. I loved reading about the different regions, the chemistry, the history, the science, how the climate can change the flavor and the different winemaking techniques. I was also really good at tasting. The manager who ran the wine program, if you do the math, I'm still 18 by the way, was studying to become a Master Sommelier. So a Master Sommelier is an organization that's based out of London, and it's a certification in the service of wine, and it involves different levels, but basically you just have to memorize everything there is to know about wine. At the time, there were 34 Master Sommeliers. Today there's about 140. But the exam involves blind tasting 6 wines, naming the country, the vintage, and the grape variety. There's also like a theory portion and then a service portion. It has a 3% pass rate. So it's pretty much impossible to pass. So, but I realized that I could taste wine because they would give me something and then they would give it to me like 2 months later without even telling me what it was. I said, that's the wine that I tasted 3 months ago, right? They said, yes, that's it. So it's like, okay, maybe I've got something here. But it wasn't until I was actually in my college chemistry class and I had my chemistry book wrapped around my Wine Spectator. And I was like not even paying attention to what the teacher was saying because I was just reading about all the different wines. And I had this epiphany was, what am I doing here? Like, I'm gonna become a Master Sommelier. Never mind the fact that I wasn't old enough to drink, and it is a 3% pass rate, but I figured, why not me? I knew that if I could pass that exam, I could write my own ticket. So I dropped out of college. My parents were very unhappy about it. My mother actually, when I told her that I was going to become a Master Sommelier, she asked me what medical specialty that was. The atomic matter mouth, I guess. So I started studying for the exam full time. I moved on from waitressing and took a job at a wine shop where I tasted wine in top classes. I took and passed the advanced level when I was 21, making me the youngest person actually ever pass. The local paper ran a front page story about how I was this wine phenom. With just that one article, my parents became supportive. Yeah, it was interesting. But, and then ever since they've become one of my biggest champions. But this is a lesson that taught me that in order for other people to believe in you, you have to first believe in yourself. But my next goal was to pass the final level of the test, which meant I needed to get back into restaurants. Once again, fate decided to intervene, and I didn't question it. I met a French chef at a wine and food event in Carmel, and he was looking for a sommelier in Chicago. The few things I knew about Chicago was the Bears, Michael Jordan, Charlie Trotter, and the fact that it was really cold. Nonetheless, that intuition kicked in, and I decided to take that leap of faith and move to the Windy City to become the sommelier at Everest. I was 23 years old, and I didn't know a soul in the city. I worked at Everest for the next few years, studying for the exam. I learned a lot about food, wine, and service. Chef Joho was and continues to be an amazing and supportive mentor. The last test was daunting, and there are moments where I didn't think that I could do it, but I persisted as I knew I could never forgive myself if I gave up. Thankfully, I didn't give in to my self-doubt, and I passed the exam at the age of 26, making me the youngest woman to do so. And today, I'm still one of only 24 women in the world. So yeah, we need more. Actually, I just learned that Chicago was just named the best city for female entrepreneurs, so go for Chicago. I just learned that about 10 minutes ago. So I had reached my goal, and I knew it was time to find that next challenge. I was again presented with the chance to audition. I was presented with the chance to audition as the host for Check Please. Again, I said, why not me? I'd never done TV, and it scared me, which is exactly why I decided to do it. It was a tremendous honor, and I have many wonderful memories of meeting with small business owners who reminded me so much of my parents. I saw their drawn and tired faces, and my heart filled with joy as I knew shortly after their episode would air, their lives would change for the better. One of my favorite stories was this restaurant we did on 63rd called Yasa, and they were going to go out of business actually, and we actually moved the air date up. And thank goodness we did, because not only did they just boom in business, but he took over the space next door. And I saw him a few years later. He says, because of you, my children now go to a good school that I can provide for my family. And that's why that show mattered. It built businesses and it built neighborhoods. But it was giving these hardworking men and women a fighting chance at pursuing their little piece of the American dream. Another important element of the show was brought to my attention a few years ago. An Indian woman came up to me and said her daughter had loved watching me while she grew up. She said one day, she was, Mommy, look, that woman on TV looks like me. That meant the world to me as I reflected to that young girl a possibility of what she could one day become. If you can't see it, you can't become it, which is why represented diversity in all forms is so important. And I think no other city in the United States does it better than Chicago. But Check Please was just something I did for fun over summer. I still had my career in wine. I was looking for my next challenge. With a heavy heart, I decided to leave Everest and Chef Joho and took on a new challenge as a director of wine and spirits for Lettuce. I got married and settled into a 9-to-5 life, and I must tell you, it was good until it wasn't. I really enjoyed working for Rich Melman and Kevin Brown, true restaurant geniuses, but I knew something was missing from my life. I woke up, and I didn't want to be where I had to go. I was 37 years old, and I felt like each day a little piece of me died. I would sit in my office like George Costanza from Seinfeld and just watch the clock. Sometimes I even took a nap. It was like the thought of spending the rest of my days in that cubicle was quite frankly depressing. I'm not sure why. I made 6 figures, fabulous benefits like health insurance and a steady paycheck, but I was absolutely miserable. In hindsight, I realized that entrepreneurship is born from a place of sadness. Something better is waiting out there for you, but you are too scared to take that call. Why rock the boat? What if you fail? But if you know that you keep doing what you're doing, you're just slowly going to die, right? It's like in Shawshank Redemption when you looked at him, you've got 2 choices. You get busy living or you get busy dying. Those are 2 choices. It's either fear or love. Which one are you going to take, right? Red pill, blue pill, right? So one day my phone rang, and it was my friend Matt who owned a couple of restaurants, and he said he had a spot, and he wanted to know if I would open a restaurant with him. I listened to him, and I said, no. I didn't want to take the risk. I saw what my parents went through, and I wasn't going to rock the boat. I needed to stay safe and stable. But a few months went by, and his offer kept haunting me, the call growing louder and louder. That sense of intuition kicked in, and I had an epiphany. And I realized that I would rather live bravely and take a chance on myself than stay safe and limit the possibilities of what I could become. Because isn't that the great fear that we have? Not that we are small and powerless, but that we are beyond measure and unstoppable. So I paid Matt a visit without hesitation. I told him, yes, let's open that restaurant. And so that's how we began the boarding house. So the next year was spent planning and preparing, not sure of what to expect. I was both scared and excited. You know, the anticipation was great. I felt alive. It just, everything felt so real, and it's daunting. You know, there's a lot of paperwork to fill out, licensing, inspections, and it's really important that the city has taken these steps to streamline the process, because you've got 1,000 things to think about. And if you've got to stand, I mean, there's nothing like money just going out, and you've got to wait to get permits. So the work that they've done to streamline that is, I can't even tell you, it's just invaluable. So the restaurant did open, and it was an absolute hot mess. There's no other way to describe it. We couldn't keep up with the business. We had to fire the chef. The reviews were awful but nice, which makes it worse, because you could tell that people wanted me to win, and surely even I knew how bad it was. I was beyond exhausted. I was in the middle of a divorce all of a sudden. I was fighting with everyone. I was broken. It was a very low point for me, but you know what? I got through it, because the only way past a storm is right through it. You get 10 seconds to cry, and then you pivot. You go to work every single day, and you fix it, and you get it right one day at a time. You're flying without a safety net. That's what it means. You're in business for yourself. You know, the struggles and challenges are actually what's going to chisel and make you who you really are. You know, it's not easy, but it's worth it, you know, because you're going to learn things about yourself that you didn't even think were possible. And we did turn things around. Our chef, actually, a year after we had let go of the first chef, ended up as a James Beard nominee for Rising Star Chef. And right after that nomination came out, I opened 7 Lions on Michigan Avenue. My partners and I opened that. And so that happened the very next day. And of course, we opened Terra and Vine in September. So what are you going to need? You're going to need a sense of optimism, and you're going to need your intuition. Intuition is that voice inside of you that's going to be your guiding force, right? It's very Star Wars, right? You will be faced with countless decisions, and your intuition is what's going to be your compass to help you point in the right direction. You know, it'll tell you when to keep going, and it will also then tell you when to pump the brakes, and it's time to pivot, right? That's a big word that you hear a lot of entrepreneurs say, pivot. And it's on a dime. You just change. You will become a leader. People will come to you, and you realize that how you behave and what you do will influence the lives of so many others. Yes, I work for myself, but I also work for 200 people who have lives that depend on them. It's a very humbling feeling to know that because you did something, you changed somebody's life. But this is what's most important, and I don't want you to forget this. When you are faced in the midst of challenges, when you are mired in a stew of self-doubt, and when you think you have failed, I want you to remember these words. You are not alone. We've all been there. I don't care if you want to start a taco stand or if you want to be the next Uber. All right? We've all been there. I know what failure is like. It doesn't feel good. Trust me, I hate losing. But it is up to you to decide if you leave it at failure or if you turn it into a slow success. Failure is our greatest teacher if we decide to humbly learn from it. And lastly, I really want to applaud you for your courage. Whatever brought you here today. You know, entrepreneurship is the lifeblood of the city. It's the lifeblood of this country. You know, the credit belongs to men and women like you who are asking, why not me? Who have the tenacity and courage to listen to their calling and to follow their passion and to not accept the status quo. Heck, it's easy to sit at home and stay safe, and I know there are people out there calling you crazy and careless, like, what are you doing with your life? It's a perfectly good job. You're going to regret this, right? But you're the ones who decided to show up for yourselves today and to claim your entitlement to opportunity, to express your magnificence and say, I'm ready, and this is where I belong. I want to thank the city of Chicago. You know, a story like mine can only unfold in a city like this. It's how we accept people. You've accepted me into your home, you've come into my restaurants, You've been big fans of mine, and it's meant everything to me. You know, I think expos like this really show what we do for small businesses, what we do for that spirit of people that want to get their slice of the pie. I really want to thank also Commissioner Fields for putting this together, and also to Deputy Commissioner Ken Meyer for inviting me here today. They've allowed me to take a few questions if we have time, so if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them to the best of my ability. Yes?
So I'm actually from New York.
I think we can give you this. There you go.
Hi. Is it on? Okay. So I'm actually from New York. I'm actually studying to be a somm.
Oh, wow.
But my actual business is a dance company. They're completely separate. But the question that I have, in terms of running a business in a huge city like New York, where there's like a lot of competition and it's
Yes.
really hard for people to see what it is that I do, what do you suggest in terms of being the person to stand out?
So you have technology. So the question is, how did she get out there? How did she let people know what she does, and to sort of like express her voice in a sea of many? And there's something called YouTube that has changed everything. The best thing you can do is go out there and get a good camera. It doesn't cost a lot of money. It's a great investment. And start a YouTube channel. And whatever it is you want to do, that's how you can get it known. Instagram is fabulous, Snapchat, but you have these vehicles now where you can get your voice out there. I mean, it costs $7 to do a website nowadays. And you can, there's lots of platforms, do it yourself, and that's really what you can do is express your personality, because nowadays you can get a TV show, but they want to know how many followers you have on Instagram and how many views you get on YouTube. So the world is your oyster, you just have to go get it. Is that it? Yes.
What did you do to best manage your stress?
Oh, that's a good one. Best manage stress. I got a really good therapist, and I think that my therapist should be on our payroll. No, really, you need to have that outlet where you don't burden people in your life with how you're feeling, because they can't unhear it. So it's my therapist. Some people do masseuse, massage, whatever. I do a therapist. Some people do personal trainers. But working out is very important too. You have to, even if you have to schedule it, it's funny, Zoe Shore is a friend of mine. I just texted her today. She's getting ready to open a restaurant. And I texted her and I said, make sure you take time for yourself. And it took me a very long time to understand the importance of that. Because when I'm drained, I pull from the people around me, and it's not fair to them. So managing stress is extremely important. Routine, schedule, consistency, and you stick to it. Yes, you're a Ferrari. You don't put cheap gas in a Ferrari. You're a Ferrari, remember that.
When you have a limited, and by limited I mean no budget, where's the best place to start? Because it's almost easy to buy a domain, get a bunch of business cards made, and you're like, there you go, I'm a small business. But where's the smart money in terms of getting started, getting marketed, and establishing your offering?
Well, it's funny, Howard Tolman, I don't know if he's here today, but he wrote an article for the Tribune, it was an op-ed piece. And the first thing that you have to ask yourself is, do I have a product that somebody's gonna buy? And if you don't have a product that's not gonna fill a niche, that somebody's gonna buy, that somebody's gonna give you money for, then you gotta keep going until you have that product. So you can have the best marketing plan, this, that, whatever, but if you don't have a product that nobody's gonna buy, it's a no-go. So you just have to, like I said, it's just like, do I have that golden egg? So ask yourself, am I holding the golden egg, right? And if you're not, keep polishing it until it becomes gold. Yes. All right, well, thank you so much. There's lots more here. Thank you very much for listening to me so intently and patiently. Thank you.
Thank you. Wait, don't leave. So we want to, just before everyone leaves, we want to present Alpina. First of all, that was awesome. Let's give her another round of applause. I feel like she should have a motivational book, or at least a calendar. If I don't have time to read a whole book, just give me a calendar so I can flip and see some of Alpina's sayings. But we'd like to present to you honorary business license.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
One of our most valuable business licenses. Our keynote speaker. Thank you so much for the inspiration. And a few girl power facts as well, so I appreciate that. And my takeaway was that pursuing your passion can impact the lives of others. So that's very awesome, the impact that you've had. So I also want to thank some of our financial sponsors, and they're here. Fifth Third, Country Financial, and Western Union. I think we had a young lady up front who asked about financing, and you want to market your product and you want to get a great product, but we also have partners here who work with us for small business loans. So please take advantage and go visit them, because we know every good idea needs to be backed by a dollar. So make sure you talk to them. Take advantage of all of our partners here who also have resources for you. We'll be here until 9. And then we also have mini makeovers, free headshots, and some networking classes, which I think you did an awesome job of one earlier. I heard people bragging about you. So thank you for coming out and spending your evening with us. And remember, you are a Ferrari. Okay? Thank you, everyone. Good night.